In this video, I want to give you a bulletproof way of getting yourself out of a rut using science, using neurology, using biology, and by addressing a lot of the problems that aren't really covered in the mainstream internet content. Contrary to popular belief, ruts don't just happen because of massive negative life events. They can happen because of big or small, good or bad, and what I'll call invisible reasons. First thing, if you're in a rut, then just acknowledge it. There's no need to put yourself down because of it. Just accept it, acknowledge it, and understand that right now we are going to start work towards moving past it so that you get out of this rut. And I'm also going to be sharing with you strategies that'll make sure that you never get yourself into a rut again. Now, before we start talking about getting ourselves out of the rut, we have to address what I call the invisible reasons that you'll find yourself in one. So invisible reasons that'll put you in a rut are actually some of the most powerful things that'll keep you in a rut. And so they have to be addressed beforehand. And the examples of these are going to be depression, hormonal changes, bad sleep, a bad diet, bad relationships, being overweight. And these things have a huge negative impact on you. And we need to address them before we can even start talking about a rut, because I want you to imagine that you have all of those things going on. So let's just say you have a hormonal imbalance, so your thyroid is off. So now all of a sudden you're affected with depression, dysthymia, you don't get joy in life, you're easily irritated, and you're sitting there thinking like, maybe I can think my way out of this, or maybe I can willpower my way out of this, but you're not even realizing that your biology physically prevents you from getting out of that mental state. And then you start stacking on more invisible reasons. So you're not going to the gym, so therefore your mind isn't as sharp. You don't have as much energy. You're in bad relationships that you know you shouldn't be in. So whenever you see that person, they spike your cortisol, which is your stress hormone, which lowers your testosterone. And so you end up in a state where because of that, your energy is consistently down, and so is your stress tolerance. You have a bad diet, so your microgut biome is completely out of whack, which increases inflammation in the body, also increasing cortisol, increasing fat, lowering your energy. Your sleep is off, which also lowers testosterone and increases cortisol as well. And so you're trying to go through life, you're trying to willpower your way out, you're trying to think yourself out of this mess. You're watching YouTube and consuming content when you don't even realize that there's 50 things going on in the background that are just absolutely destroying your biology and making it physically impossible for you to get yourself out of this state. And so before we can start talking about how to not get in a rut or how to get yourself out of it, you have to address these invisible problems. Now, there's complicated solutions to each one of these, but for the sake of brevity, I'm going to give you very quick answers and solutions. Bad relationships, if you know you shouldn't be in it, then that's a sign that you immediately cut that off. This is one of those Nike just do it moments. It could be friends, family, a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it is. If you know that relationship is toxic, you know it's time to take action. If you really want to get yourself out of the rut, then you have to remove those toxic influences from your life. And the way that you do it is you just do it. There's no magical 5-step formula. It's just you one day you decide I'm going to stop communicating with this person, or you slowly phase them out, or you stop inviting them to things, or you stop accepting their invitations, or you break up with them. Next up, you have your diet. If you have the kind of money for it, I highly recommend you take a food allergy test. I'll leave a link for one below. I'm not an affiliate. This is just the one that I use. So you can figure out what kind of foods trigger inflammation in your body that your body responds poorly to, so that you can avoid those foods. But as a general rule of thumb, you want to avoid sugar, you want to avoid dairy. And so go ahead, look at your diet, do an audit, see where do I have sugars, where do I have saturated fats, where am I eating processed food. And if you need a very simple diet, this is the one that I use just because I don't put a lot of time into cooking. I just eat meat, sweet potatoes, vegetables, and I supplement with a multivitamin as well as athletic greens and Huel Black. They are not sponsors, I'm not an affiliate yet, but this is just genuinely what I use. It's a super simple diet, doesn't take that much time to cook and set up, and it gives everything your body needs in a very healthy way. If your sleep schedule is off, just set an alarm for the next day for 6 to 7 a.m. to reset your circadian rhythm. You're gonna be super tired for that day, but make sure you don't take any naps, endure one day, reset your sleep cycle, get yourself back on track. And then lastly, if you've never done this, go get a full hormonal blood panel done so doctors can see what is wrong with you, if there is something wrong with you. As an example, I was depressed for about a year and a half, and I did everything that I could to try to get myself out of it. I made sure all the other areas of my life were optimized. And then one day I get a blood panel done and I find out that my thyroid is underactive at age like 24. And as soon as they give me thyroid medication, it's like life is in color again. And there was just no way that I could willpower myself out of that because there was something wrong with my biology. And so go get a blood panel done, talk with the doctor to make sure that your biology can actually sustain a kind of lifestyle where you're not in a rut. And then lastly, you actually don't even have to do that much physical exercise to be gaining benefits from it. Just go on a 15-minute walk when you wake up, another 15-minute walk after eating, and maybe another 15-minute walk before the sun goes down, so your eyes can actually see that, hey, it's getting dark and now you can go to bed on time. But if you do have more time, then yes, go pick up weightlifting, go pick up some kind of regimented exercise, whether it's yoga or CrossFit or whatever you want, but just get your body active. That will increase your energy, that will increase your discipline, that will increase your motivation and your willpower. And so step one of getting yourself out of a rut is really just making sure that you don't have any of these invisible problems bringing you down, because you can't break yourself out of a spell when you have so many things that are just weighing you down. It becomes almost mission impossible. So rather than playing life on hard mode, take care of these problems and let's play life on easy mode. With that said, I want to move on to step two, which is addressing what actually gets you into a rut and what gets you out of it. Now, most people think that you get in a rut because of an emotional state, but that is actually not true. My perspective on it is that you get into a rut because of a state of discipline, a break in your discipline. And it's not going to be a big life-altering thing, and it's not going to be like a big thing that goes and gets you out of a rut, but it's actually going to be focusing on these small things. So the reason that you can get in ruts because of both bad things and because of good things is because both of those tend to ruin your discipline. So for example, I travel a lot, and after every single one of these amazing trips that I take, I expect myself to go into a rut because my brain is so spiked out on dopamine that doing all the boring and the small things, they just don't seem worth it anymore. And so it starts with like a little crack, and then that little crack becomes a fissure, and 2 to 3 months down the road, you are now in a rut, and you have no idea why, because maybe there's not anything necessarily bad happening in your life, but it all started with that first little crack from a very good experience. And then the same thing goes for when you're feeling bad, when you have all these negative emotions, because you start telling yourself that, hey, it's time to take it easy, or, oh, I don't have the motivation to do this, or I don't feel like doing this. And maybe day one doesn't feel that bad, but the way that these lacks in discipline works is that, imagine you have this castle, and one day this castle comes under siege from a horde of barbarians, and these barbarians are at the gate and they're trying to get in, but they can't. The walls are too big. So eventually one of the barbarians says, hey, if you guys knock down some of your walls, we'll go away. And so the people that are inside the castle go, sure, we'll knock down some of our walls. And they take a hammer, they go up there and they start chiseling away, and they knock down a little bit of the walls, and the barbarians go away. And what that's an example of is whenever you give yourself a break, whenever you give yourself room to be undisciplined, you get rid of those negative emotions. Those negative emotions are the barbarians, and so maybe they retreat a little bit in exchange for you breaking down your walls, for you breaking down your discipline. But then guess what happens? So you knock down a little bit of the wall, so then the barbarians come back a bit later. And then you're like, well, last time we knocked down our walls and the barbarians went away, so maybe we just knock down a little bit more and they'll go away again. And so you go and you break your discipline a little bit more, you break down those walls a little bit more, and then the negative emotions go away. And really good examples of this are things like not making your bed, drinking alcohol, going out, staying up later than you should. You satisfy that instant craving in exchange for a little bit of alleviation. So the barbarians go away, and then this cycle repeats itself enough times where now your walls are just completely collapsed, and now the barbarians just walk straight in, and now you are in a rut. The barbarians are inside of the castle. And so how do you get them out? It starts by pushing back, by rebuilding those walls, by having those moments of micro discipline. And so the best advice that I can offer you when it comes to rebuilding those disciplines and catching yourself before you go into a rut is, like, one, understand, are there things in your life that trigger you? So for me, I know that when I go to travel, that's very likely going to be a trigger for me as soon as I get back, and I can completely prevent a rut by just making sure there are never any cracks in my discipline. And that if I can stay disciplined even while traveling, even if I am jet lagged, even if I'm 12 hours in a different time zone, if I can stay on top of my game, I can completely avoid that rut. And then also knowing which negative triggers are likely to set you off, and understand that it's like, hey, once this happened, this isn't an excuse for me to underperform. I have to maintain that discipline, or else what'll happen is the barbarians will eventually completely get inside of the castle. And so a really good exercise that I do is I've written down, and there's a lot of power in writing, so I'm not going to go over that in this video, but literally get a notebook and I write down, this is how I behave when I'm at my best, and I write down what I do, and then this is how I behave when I'm at my worst. Maybe I'll start eating desserts, maybe I'll start eating more carbs, I won't make the bed, I'll leave my shoes at the front door instead of bringing them into my room, I won't clean the dishes as soon as I use them, I'll let my hair grow out a little bit more than I want it to, I'll wear looser and baggier clothes, I won't be hitting the gym with as much discipline. And so as soon as these things start happening, I know that it's like, yo, if you keep this up, you're gonna go downhill. And for you, you're gonna have those list of things that you do, and they actually tend to be kind of like the opposites or the contrast to what you do when you're at your best. So once again, as an example for me, my diet is on point, my workouts are on point, my sleep is on point, my cleanliness is on point. All these things are on point when I'm at my best, and then when I'm at my worst, they've fallen apart. And so taking it a step further, when I have roommates, when I'm living with somebody, another creator or a business partner or a friend, I basically tell them like, hey, if you see me doing any of these behaviors, and what I'm referring to are the behaviors of when I'm at my worst, if you see that I'm not on top of my game, you have permission to point that out so that you can spare me from going into a rut. And so if you have somebody that you trust, you can do this exercise with them and figure out, how do you perform when you're at your best? How do you perform when you're at your worst? And you're looking for those cracks in discipline, and then you can actually go and give that list to that other person and give them permission to call you out when you're not performing. Now, lastly, if you've never cultivated those highly elevated levels of discipline, you absolutely need to start to, and it all starts from those small little things. A lot of people think that, well, living a disciplined life, it's like, that doesn't sound fun, that doesn't sound freedom, but I promise you, there is so much freedom in discipline. You get the freedom to make more money, the freedom to travel the world, the freedom to perform better. When you're at your best, you have far more freedom in life than when you're depressed and in a rut. And so it might be counterintuitive, but keeping yourself accountable to that higher standard is what's going to help you live your best life. So to wrap up this video, if you are currently in a rut, then you can start by getting yourself out by checking for those invisible problems, making sure that you don't have any of these programs running in the background that are going to make it so you're playing life on hard mode. And then you can start getting yourself out of the rut, not by doing big drastic things, but by just focusing on becoming more disciplined with the smaller things in life and moving closer on a micro level, moving closer to your best version of yourself and moving further away from the version of yourself that's performing the worst. Now, it's going to take time, so be patient with yourself, give yourself chances. Once again, there's no reason to kick yourself while you're down. And with that said, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this has helped anybody get out of a rut, then make sure to let me know. I'm also going to leave some additional resources for you guys in the description below, things that I think are going to be useful for you. And so if you've enjoyed this video, if you've gotten value out of it, if you want to become a better performing person, a better performing business person / woman, then like, subscribe. That kind of support goes a long way for me. Thank you.